Be body smart MRPs, better naturally, which is true. That's a statement that you can take to the bank when it comes to Be Young. What we have a very strong feeling that all things are better natural. I guess I should preface that with they're better natural if they're grown in the right environment, in the right conditions. Much like our essential oils, if they're grown in an environment that has chemicals or pesticides or herbicides or any other chemicals, then ultimately that's going to end up in your body. And there's a lot of debate about that in the industry. I always find it funny when they say, well, it's got small enough amounts that it's not considered toxic. That's always comforting. It's not toxic, so let's take a little bit. But here's the thing that I find really interesting. Each person is different. Each person has different thresholds, and each person will respond differently to certain amounts. For instance, one person can't stand even the smallest amount of mercury. You get even a little bit of heavy metal in the system, and all of a sudden autism comes on to the rise, or you get ADHD, or you get some type of autoimmune disease where that would be considered non-toxic for some, but for others, extremely toxic. A great example is, I'm trying to remember the doctor. There's a doctor, he wrote this book. It's based on detoxifying and the importance of detoxification. He's an actual medical doctor, and he kind of changed his entire take on detoxification and other alternative ways of healing versus prescription from the course of his career. But he was serving as a medical doctor to a foreign country. He was actually in the embassy doctor, is what he was accredited for. And he was just a pediatrics doctor at that point. But the prime minister of the country, his daughter fell sick, and they thought it was malaria. And so the doctor from the country gave her the diagnosis it was malaria, and that it would take a long time for her to recover, if she recovers, and it could end up with long-term damaging effects because how severe it was. This prime minister decided, I want a second opinion. So he went, I believe it's Dr. Black. I'd have to check to make sure. But he went to this doctor, and he asked if he would come to his house and give a second opinion. So this doctor came to the house of the prime minister, went about his traditional checkup. Everything was checking out to basically be malaria. And obviously the prime minister didn't want to accept that, so he kept asking, would you be a little more thorough? Would you keep looking? So the doctor kept looking. He kept finding different, just going through all the different procedures to get to a diagnosis. As he was going through, there is a large chunk of earwax in this daughter's ear, and so he ended up cleaning out the earwax, and what he found was there was a fairly large tick who had embedded itself in the inner ear. And so he even said in his book that he thought, should I waste my time on this tick? Because obviously there's something more serious going on. The girl was very lethargic. She didn't recognize her parents. She couldn't speak. What she could speak was slurred. So, something more severe is going on. But he ultimately decided, you know what, there's a problem. Let's take it out, and we'll get back to to finding out what's really going on. So they went about the process. They were able to get the tick out. And interestingly, after they pulled the tick out, in less than 5 minutes, the girl sat up. She recognized her parents. She called them by name. She gave them a hug. In less than 10 minutes, her fever had broke. Her fever was like 104. Her fever had broke. It started coming down. 45 minutes, her fever was at 99 degrees. She was standing up, her normal self. So what this taught this doctor is what should have been non-toxic, a tick bite, was something that was extremely toxic to this particular individual. So when the tick bites, it actually release, if you will, I don't want to call it a poison, but it's just a chemical that it releases to numb the area so the host doesn't know that it's being sucked on by a parasite. And it's usually not enough to do anything. What you're more scared of is the diseases that ticks carry. But because it's in the inner ear of this girl, it yielded some serious symptoms, which is not typical to a tick bite. So you're probably wondering, okay, that was a really long story, Ori. What was the point of that? The point of that, once again, is who's to say how toxic a pesticide is to a certain individual, or heavy metal to a certain individual, or any other toxin. Sure, on a global scale, it may not be that big of a deal. But if we're talking about people and their bio-individuality, even a small trace could be detrimental. So that's why at Be Young, we're very passionate about ensuring that it's the purest and the cleanest. And if it's not, we won't send it out. And those of you who've been with our company have seen that, where we may be on back order on something and we get in the product and we realize this is not Be Young standard, and we reject it and we're out another 5-6 weeks. We get a lot of angry people, but we will not compromise. And that's something that you can take to the bank with Be Young. So when we're talking about our mineral replacement powders, you're talking about the finest all-natural whole foods. They are derived of primarily whole foods. You're talking about health benefits and long-term hunger management. Now, what I've found, and this is me, could be different, what I've found is it works best in the morning. My body type might be different, but if I take an MRP to skip like a lunch, I'm on the ground rolling, dying. It actually like starts my digestive process a lot more aggressively in a later meal. So what I would suggest, if you're going to take this to skip a meal because you're trying to lose weight, I would suggest you do it in your morning. I think a couple reasons for that. Now, this is just me speculating. It's not scientifically documented. But obviously in the morning, you've gone a long duration without food. So your stomach is naturally going to be more acidic. And if you remember back on NutriSmart's training, we talked about when's the best time to take a mineral. And minerals break down inside the stomach. And they need to be more acidic for them to actually break down to where they can actually be assimilated and used throughout the body. And so when you take it in the morning, it provides a better environment for those to be broken down and assimilated and help throughout that process. Also, it seems like breakfast is not as long of a stretch. And so if you're wondering when's the best time, my suggestion would be in a morning, but you can take it anytime throughout the day. As we look at our MRPs, here's one thing that you can be pretty confident about. They're going to be made up of premium whole foods. They're going to be made up of natural vitamins and minerals. They'll contain protein, fiber. They do have natural antioxidants, and they have enzymes and probiotics. So we get a lot of questions as well as, well, when should I take Masaji, our antioxidant drink? When should I take NutriSmart, our broad spectrum vitamin and mineral supplement versus a meal replacement powder? And each one has its specific place and its specific purpose. And if we go back to the conversation once again about daily recommended minimums and how it was actually discovered what the minimum is, what they did is they would take healthy people and they would, reduce their intake of a certain vitamin or a mineral. So for instance, vitamin C, they would reduce it down until a symptom would arise, scurvy or vitamin K, and they'd start losing eyesight, and they'd say, oh, okay, well, they're losing their vision, so let's up their doses until that symptom goes away. So they'd up it just enough to get the symptom to go away, but not enough to necessarily be optimal amount. So your daily recommended minimum is just enough to keep you from getting sick or potentially getting a disease. But it's not necessarily the optimal amount that the body needs. And so if you're talking about the daily recommended minimum, you're talking about what the body needs at the minimum level to be healthy. So if we look at that, our NutriSmart provides a broad spectrum of of a good chunk of your minimums. So you're going to have the daily recommended minimum of your vitamin C, of your vitamin K, of your vitamin D, of your vitamin E. It's going to have your B vitamins. It's going to have some antioxidants in there. It's going to have your omegas 3, 6, and 9 in the correct order. And it's also going to have some other whole food powders in there. So it gets you a good baseline. Now, once again, that's not going to be optimal. It's the baseline to start your day. In addition to that, we know that we need 12,000 units of antioxidants. And so per day as a minimum, we know that Masaji provides your minimum. Once again, it's going to cover you for the day. It's not necessarily optimal, but one serving covers you for what you need minimally. And so you have those two. But as far as a protein or a enzyme, probiotics, prebiotics, digestive enzymes, those are all missing from Masaji. They're missing from your NutriSmart. And so by coupling all three of those together, NutriSmart, Masaji, MRPs, what you're getting is you're getting a broad, super broad spectrum, daily recommended minimum, and in some cases above minimum, what your body needs to perform. You're getting your enzymes, your probiotics at its minimum, if not maybe a little higher. You're getting your protein and fiber. You're getting 20 grams of protein, which is a fairly decent amount for a protein shake, and you're getting fiber. So you're getting your digestive enzymes, you're getting your digestive fiber, which is important because most people don't eat enough fiber to begin with, and that leads to a bunch of problems in and of itself. And it's really important that you're getting the probiotics because a lot of people today have either gone through a round of antibiotics or is getting ready to go through a round of antibiotics or have taken antibiotics in the past, which unfortunately is the case. And that's, something that hopefully we can bring some light to and shed, there's a time and place for it. But it's obviously not on any little piddly thing. Problem with the antibiotics is they kill the good gut flora. And what's left over is all the bad stuff. And typically what the bad stuff is it's going to be fungus, candida. So what ends up happening, you take a round of antibiotics, your good gut flora gets destroyed, which you need that good gut flora because those bacteria are what break down the vitamins and minerals and other fibers and other things that we can't break down. You destroy that and fungus, candida, goes on the rise. Now you get diverticulitis, you get Crohn's disease, you get celiac disease, all these other things stem from that. And so it's real important that we get those things, which our MRP provides. You're going to get whole food vitamin and minerals and other additional whole foods. So that's the importance of taking all three. This is a graph, you can download this right on bythtools.com. This just kind of compares how our MRPs stack up to others. So it compares it to Protein Complete, Power Meal, Slim and Sassy, and Favio. And you can see that it stacks up really good. And you're going to find that with a lot of our products. A lot of our products are either head and shoulders above or are a good, a good length in front. And what really separates it is the natural side of it. So you're going to see that as you go through our product category, seeing a lot of reasons why Be Young is obviously the better choice. So as we continue to look at our Be Body Smart line, specifically our MRPs, it's really important that we understand that getting the right amount of nutrients is important as far as preventing disease and protecting ourselves from a bunch of things that are just going rapid in our healthcare today. For instance, reducing oxidative stress, which is free radicals. So you can hear oxidative stress. Oxidative stress means free radicals. Reducing inflammation, cardiovascular health, reducing incidence of stroke, long-term weight loss, and improving insulin and glucose management. Now, one thing that's important to know about our MRPs is they're low impact. If you're carbohydrate sensitive, and if you know what that is, it's basically there's a couple different body types. Calorie sensitive, you gain weight because you eat too many calories, or carbohydrate. You can use as many calories as you want, but as soon as you start eating some carbohydrates, you poof up. The important thing about our MRPs is they're low impact carbs. There's not very many. I think the total is like 3 grams of impact carbs. So it's a really good replacement meal for people who are carbohydrate sensitive. And the important thing is it doesn't spike the glucose levels. A reason for that is a proprietary blend of all natural sweeteners that break down slowly in the body or have a low or 0 caloric index on it. And so it doesn't actually spike your glucose level. So you can drink it and not be concerned about your glucose spiking or insulin spiking or worrying about carbohydrates as you're trying to go about a weight loss. So as we look at this slide here, this slide just continues to kind of go on that path of talking about why it's important to take all natural whole foods. So as it says here, Be Body Smart MRPs continue to work long after your meal. And that's important. The reason why it does that is because it's not refined. If you look at a lot of our flours, of our grains, they've removed all the nutrients from it. And what's left is just the very bottom germ layer. They left off all the other pieces, the fiber portion, all those other pieces, where most of the nutrients are. And then once they get to the germ layer, they refine it more and take all the nutrients out, and then they synthetically add it back in. That's what's called fortified. They're going to fortify your food for you. So if they take it out, don't worry, they'll add it back in. It'll be synthetic. You'll be good to go. The body won't know the difference, which most chemists would agree. But here at Be Young, we disagree wholeheartedly for obvious reasons. So the reason why it helps delivering nutrients throughout the day is, once again, it's whole foods. They haven't been refined down to a highly processed level where you're losing those nutrients. And so it's a slower burn. The body has to break them down further throughout the digestive tract. And so it releases nutrients longer throughout the day, giving you a rise in energy and not spiking the blood and glucose once again. So with our MRPs, what you're getting is some very powerful, easy to use things. In every scoop, you're going to be getting whole foods. You're going to be getting your protein, your probiotics. They're reliable. You know that in every scoop, you're getting what you're supposed to be getting to effectively skip a meal or to optimize your dietary needs. You're going to find out that they are very efficient. And this isn't, if you're wondering, all the information on these PowerPoint slides did not come from Be Young. We actually sent these out to a third-party research facility. We didn't tell them anything about our product. We just sent them the product and said, would you please build a consumer PowerPoint deck? Basically, take our product, do testing on it, and then put in information that you feel that the consumer should know. And that's what we got back here. So what you're seeing is what they were able to discover from our products. So with that, guys, that wraps up our MRP discussion. So just to recap, they are pure, whole food based, no synthetics, no preservatives, no artificial sweeteners, no artificial flavorings, no artificial, I don't know if I said this, vitamins or minerals. There's no GMOs, does not contain soy, does not contain gluten. And with our Be Vegan that we discontinued, it did not have any dairy as well. For those of you who are Be Vegan fans, we have some good news. That line we are looking at bringing back on. I don't have a time frame for you yet, but it has been, we have been working with it since we discontinued it. Some of the reasons we discontinued it was we didn't like the formulation 100%. It was very clean, very pure, but when you drank it, it kind of left a chalky taste in your mouth. And so we wanted to refine that. And so we've been working with our formulator, Josh, and he's sourced some even cleaner and even purer pea protein. And it's basically the highest quality in the world from what he's been able to source. And we'll release some information on that. But since it's so clean, it virtually removes that chalky problem. And so we'll be bringing that back online here shortly for those of you who have questions about Be Vegan.